yet this morning as far as working out is concerned. I need
I
to.
work out 5 in the morning every day.
Nice. See, I would. That'd be the time to do it. But we just don't get any sleep in my house. So
Yeah.
like, I can't risk getting up at 5 and then waking somebody else up.
Yeah.
And also, I need to like get my sleep while I can because chances are I'm probably not gonna get it. But, all right, let me see here. Module 4. Where are you at? There we go. We're talking about Lab 4 here, correct?
Yes.
Food chains, food webs. All right. Great. I'm going to pull yours up with your permission and then share the screen.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Where are we at here? Okay. Got yours pulled up. Okay, there we go. Now I can share the screen. Okay. So, like I said earlier before we were recording, this is a very straightforward lab. There's not much to say about it. It's not even that much into the scientific process. Yeah, technically you're forming hypotheses and predictions and you're testing them, but it doesn't require a lot of scientific thinking and like crunching the numbers or anything like that. There we go. So let's see. You should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. So looking at yours, your first the first simulator. Really quick, I'll just say this, even though you probably know, this is more for the sake of the recording. That first experiment was like the most basic to basics. So you couldn't get much more basic. It was basically simulating a food chain, which is not a real thing in real life. It's usually not a food chain, right? It's a food web.
Right.
With all these different parts intermingled, but I wanted to start simple, and that's what it was. And you did a food chain. Looks like you've got everything correct on that. I mean, there's nothing really even to say it. And then step 2, you kind of did the same thing. You just make it a little bit more complicated. You're turning more plants on. You're changing things around. Again, you did great on that. I think most people did. And then here's the thing you said that you messed up on, like on accident probably. You did it. You just didn't put it in there, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you did it because you were able to answer the questions. But you did lose a point for that. And of course, as always, it's a good time to remind you and anybody watching the video, you can always go in and fix it. So
I was going to that later on today.
Yeah, you can always do that. And moving forward, let's see. Yeah, you answered those correctly. Yep. Okay. Pretty straightforward stuff. Oh, same there, right? And I think you mentioned that you just didn't put the information in. And again, based on your answers to questions 17 through 21, I could tell that you obviously did do it. So even though the data is not there in the table, I could tell you did it. And some of the only things even worth mentioning here, in my opinion, like the one things I would definitely bring up that you got correct, but I still want to bring it up because we're recording in it anyway, is question 18. This is a very important concept. What would happen to this imaginary ecosystem if the producers were to die out? So really what you needed to take home, the take-home message, and it's really important, is that if you don't have producers, everything else dies. Right. Or I like, as some people put, they would either die or move away. And that's a good answer too, because if it was a real life scenario and it wasn't a simulation, then yeah, you could possibly go to a different ecosystem. But it's a good time to point out too, on that note, that that's not always an option, right? Like in the real life, if there's a real ecosystem somewhere on Earth, if you destroy a part of it or the whole thing, it's not always, you can't always just leave and go to a new ecosystem. That's not always an option, which is why, protecting the environment is so important. Number 21, and again, you got this right, but because we're recording, I just want to talk about it very quickly. Do you think there are many ecosystems in the world in which there is only one producer, one herbivore? No. Basically, that's like saying, hey, do you think there's ever actually any food chains as opposed to food webs? And the answer is basically no. That just wouldn't happen. No one lost points for that, even if you guessed yes, because it says, what do you think? Not like, what is the answer? So as far as I know, no one got that wrong. I didn't mark it wrong, but I just wanted to point out that no, that's not very likely, and you should know that from the book. That why that would be very unlikely, right? It just wouldn't work. Excuse me. 22 is not important. 23. Yeah,
I didn't know.
Where you just did? Oh, you didn't know?
I didn't know if it was one question, if it was multiple questions.
Yeah, sorry.
So I was like, crap, I didn't know.
All right, well, that's because it's hard for me to write that question. That's one of those questions where it's easier to say it than write it. Because I wanted to give you enough information, but I didn't want to give you too much, and it seems like I may have given you too much. What I'm saying here is like, all right, so you've got the simulation that you did with, I forgot the numbers, like 5 producers and 4 herbivores, whatever those numbers were on the simulation.
Right.
Now imagine that compared to a more real life scenario where you might have 30 producers and 15 herbivores and 10 omnivores and 2 top predators, right? So if you have instead of a small food web, you have a much larger, more biodiverse food web. Keeping that scenario in your mind, what the question is saying is, in that more real life scenario where you had more biodiversity, do you think there would be a greater impact if you lose one species, or do you think it would be a lesser impact? Basically, you're comparing the two, right? No matter what, we're talking about losing a species.
Okay.
And what do you think would have a bigger impact if you lost one species? When you had that smaller, less diverse ecosystem, or the larger, more diverse ecosystem? Where do you think it would make a greater impact by losing just one species?
Okay.
And what do you think the answer is to that?
Now, so I gotta think of it. Now I can't just tell you right ahead because I don't.
That's okay. I wonder if I could. Let me see something here. Visualization of 2 different. I don't know. Biodiversity. And let's see. I'm just like, it might be easier to visualize it, and if so, maybe I might change that question for the future and actually put in a picture. Okay. Yeah, this is not that good, but all right. See, this is all producers,
Okay.
but still up top we've got a more diverse, right? It's like a good mixture of all these different species, and then down below we've got you still have all the same species, but it's a little bit less diverse, right? Because it's mostly species A. So the question is then, all right, imagine you lose one species from community 1 up top, and you also lose one species from community 2. In which situation do you think it would have a bigger impact? Where do you think losing one species is more detrimental?
I'd probably be community 2.
Good. Yes, and that is the answer. Because basically the more biodiverse something is, the more stable it is, generally speaking, right? So we don't ever want to lose species, but if you're going to lose a species, it's better to have a lot of species.
Right. Instead of just one of each in the top, like at the top one.
Exactly. Let's look at these images. Another good visualization here would be, all right, so here's a really basic food chain or food web. If you lose this rabbit, that might be a pretty big deal because that's not that intricate of a food web, right? So that's like, there's a lot of things depending on that. But if you move it up and compare it to something like this, well, maybe not. Well, here we go. Right, the more complex it is, the more diverse it is, the better it'll handle losing a single species. And then, so let me go ahead and go back and change your grade because you answered it. So I give you a point back for that already. But yeah, what I wanted to get out with that question is make people think. That's why one of the reasons why biodiversity is so important, because with the more biodiversity you have, the more stable an ecosystem is, the more likely it is to survive changes like losing a species or something like that. But yeah, and like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and just give you that point right now since you answered the question, because your issue wasn't not knowing the answer. Your issue was not understanding what I was.
Yeah, I was like, am I supposed to answer all 3 of them? Am I just supposed to answer just one, or am I just?
Right. Yeah. So you're good there. We fixed that. You don't need to do anything with that one. But all right. So then the last one. Oh, you just made a small mistake. So snakes aren't omnivores, basically. So all you'll need to do to go fix that, unless you have one off the top of your head right now, is go in and pick a different animal that is an omnivore.
Because omnivore is.
Oh yeah, so an omnivore would be something that eats meat and plants.
Meat and plants.
Like an herbivore only eats plants, right? A predator, generally speaking, only eats other animals. So an omnivore is kind of like both. Like humans are omnivores, right? We eat plants.
So like a bear. No.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So I will go ahead and put that question. Give you that right there.
Why do I think snakes? Well, I mean, snakes eat. Well, anacondas eat humans.
But even then, a human is an animal, so that would still
Yeah.
only be a predator. They're only
Yeah.
snakes are only carnivores, and I had to look that up to be sure. I was like, does she know something? Because I'm a herpetologist, so I'm like, does she know something that I don't? And I did look it up, and according to the sources I saw, there are no snakes that are omnivores. So I just wanted to be sure. And again, but this isn't a herpetology class, so again, you corrected the mistake, so I'm just going to give you your points back because again, I'm not here to teach you about snakes. I'm here to teach you about biodiversity. So it's okay that you missed that. You just got it fixed. So there you go.
Okay, cool.
So did you have any other questions?
No, those are really the other ones. I mean, I'm going to retake that exam, even though, I understand what you said in email because of previous other people and cheating on stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I just think it's hard.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
What's right, what's wrong.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Well, but I think a lot of exams has been like that now from a lot of teachers. I'm like, crap, I don't know what's right or what's wrong, but I need to study more on.
Yeah. Well, like I said, in your situation, my best advice to you is when you go to do it, take your time, have your textbook in front of you, and look up the answer. Now, some of them, if you're doing that and you still have a question, then let me know specifically. Like someone did that for the extra credit, Module 4 discussion extra credit. Someone said, like, hey, I was looking at the study guide. Can you please clarify question 10 and 11? And I did and then when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm glad they asked because it's the way it was written in the study guide. It wasn't very clear. So if you ever find yourself looking at the exam, especially now for the retake, and you're like, well, I'm looking this up and the book says this, but the options are this, right? Then you can come to me and we can talk about it. Then I can nudge you in the right direction. Because then I know that you know the topic. So your issue isn't with the content. Your issue is just with the way the question is written. So when that happens, just let me know.
Okay.
And again, it's untimed. So, if you have an issue at 10 o'clock in the morning and I don't get back to you until 2 in the afternoon, that's okay because it's not timed.
Okay. All right. I think that was pretty much it.
All right. Well, then when you're done making the corrections on the lab, you might send me an email to remind me that we had this meeting.
Okay.
Then once you have your new grade, then I can boost that new grade by 10% because you don't want me to boost the old grade. You want me to boost the higher new grade. So remind me when you're done and I'll take care of that for you.
Okay.
All right. Well,